Did you know that while Palomino is held to be a famous breed of horse from Spain, it's actually not a breed of horse at all. Rather, it's a horse color. A Palomino horse arises when a red horse has its agouti gene in the off position. And then on top of that, it also needs to have a copy of the cream dilution mutation titled CR. I mean, as we all know. So really, any horse can be a Palomino horse so long as the genes that dictate its color follow that exact pattern. And at this point you may say,
"Objection! These remarks are profane and irrelevant."
"You're a wine guy, just do the wine thing." And I guess my response would be, well, because Palomino is a color of horse, but it's also a wine grape. Although it should be noted that the wine grape is far less loved than the horsey version. But you're right, I am a wine person, and so we will stick with the grape version of Palomino, whether it is loved or not. The Palomino grape was allegedly named after Ferdinand Yanez Palomino, who was a knight in the court of Alfonso X, the King of Castilla. Now, the word Palomino means pigeon, or if you're feeling poetic, dove. And the vast majority of Palomino in the world is all planted in the southwest part of Spain in Andalucia, where it is used to make sherry. It was once the in-vogue, super trendy, first choice cultivar for sherry producers everywhere. But over time, these producers discovered that there were other far more aromatic cultivars that did the job a little better. And so even in its snugly safe little homeland of Andalucia, Palomino's days are numbered. Another reason for Palomino's gloomy future is that sherry itself, despite being a magical and mystical sensory experience that you absolutely have to try, it is on an indubitable decline. In France, the grape is called Listan, but really a rose called by any other name is just as doomed to oblivion. And this is shown by the fact that in the last 70 years, France's plantings of Listan or Palomino have decreased by 90%. In South Africa, it was once widely planted across the entire South African winelands. It was super common because it was needed to service the burgeoning South African brandy industry. But as of 2008, that had all shrunk down to a measly 320 hectares, and by 2024, that 320 had dropped to a mere 80 hectares. And you might say, but why then are you telling us about a doomed cultivar? Why waste time on this if no one even likes it? Well, I didn't say no one liked it. And first of all, the reason we'd waste time on a doomed cultivar is for the same reason that kids love going to dinosaur exhibits at museums. And the second reason is the fact that today's hand drink solo wine of the day is the tragically spectacular Pleasure Garden Palomino by Blackwater Wines, vinified by winemaker Francois Haasbroek. But why is it called Pleasure Garden? I hear you wheeze, desperately struggling to breathe under the weight of your own curiosity. The fruit that went into the Pleasure Garden Palomino comes from the Robertson Valley, in a vineyard that's down on the valley floor, so it doesn't have too much altitude, but it is planted in those rich limestone soils that has made the Robertson Valley famous. And this vineyard was planted in 1927. But what else happened in 1927? Well, 1927 was the year that Charles Lindbergh first made his famous solo non-stop transatlantic flight in his little plane, the Pleasure Garden. That's not actually true. Some of it is true, but not that last bit. What else happened in 1927? Well, the now world-famous director Alfred Hitchcock released his very first film in England, and that film was called The Pleasure Garden. Winemaker Francois Haasbroek, being a kind of cultured, kind of classy bloke, decided to name his wine in honor of this classic cinematic historical moment. Now, when we get into the glass and give this guy a sniff, well, I mean, we know that the textbook says that Palomino is neutral and that there's far more aromatic grapes out there. But if you have this in front of you, you'll know that what we're smelling in the glass is anything but neutral. It's got a hugely giving open nose that has a whole bunch of stuff going on. I mean, there is salted cashews, pineapple fruit, peach fruit, orange barley candy, fresh cut yellow apple, and even an interesting hint of pear cider. Now, when we give it a sip, again, the palate is just all over the place. It opens with some of that sweet yellow apple that we smelt on the nose, but immediately there's loads of chalky texture in there as well, which I guess is kind of to be expected from many old vine wines. But then contrasting those sweet elements are these salted nut notes, and then contrasting the salted nut notes is a little bit of tertiary honey. I mean, this is a wine that is 4 years old at the time of being reviewed, and really it's just evolved beautifully, and it's this wide open display of fruit and nuts and florals and tertiary elements. And then right at the finish there's also a little touch of oak-inspired nutmeg. This little relic of a wine is really enormously important for anyone who wants to understand not only South African wine history, but also the global history of sherry and Palomino as a cultivar. And it's not going to be here forever. As winemaker Francois Hansbroek said, no one is in a hurry to plant Palomino either in Spain or in South Africa. So hit it while you can. Now that's all we have time for today, but if you enjoyed the video, support us on Patreon and subscribe to the Hendrik Solo YouTube channel, where we publish at least 6 videos each month talking about unusual cultivars, almost extinct cultivars, fascinating wines, and some of the rising winemaking stars that are coming out of the dynamic South Africa.